Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a phenomenal woman that I had the pleasure of actually meeting earlier this year. We were a part of a virtual event together, and I was very impressed with her story that she shared. And she just seems to be a woman of good spirit and enthusiasm and a desire to share with others her story with the hopes of encouraging and inspiring and uplifting. She's a mother, she's an author, but most importantly, she's a woman of God, and she's taken time out of her busy schedule to be with us today. So it is my privilege at this time, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you my very special guest today, Miss Candi Usher. Candi, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we get into our segments for the day, I do want to give the audience an opportunity to learn a little bit about you. Kind of give us an introduction of who you are, where you're from, what you do. Kind of tell our people, give them a taste of who is Candi Usher.
Hi, my name is Candy. I am a mother of four sons, one of which is in heaven. Um, the last three are absolutely amazing. They're the biggest blessing in the world. Um, I'm an 8-year Navy veteran. I'm originally from Georgia. Um, yeah, about that. And I'm gonna leave it at that. About that. Um, left there when I was 20 years old to really go find myself. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. I've been an author for 7 years, but I started off writing poetry about the age of 6. I published and won my first poetry contest when I was 10. Didn't even know I won it. Received $150 in the mail for a 10-year-old. That's kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, so did that. Been down a lot of roads, a lot. Some good, some not so good. But I'm blessed and I'm grateful to be here still.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. And as we, of course, go through our show today, we're going to learn a little bit more about you and your journey. But I appreciate you giving us that little taste because we are definitely in for a treat. I'm already claiming that victory. So I know you're going to
Amen.
have something very powerful to share for us to, again, to be inspired and encouraged by. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So,
Yeah.
as I say on all of my episodes, I'm a firm believer, that when it comes to sharing our story, it's so important that we think about, where the beginnings of it all come from.
Hmm.
I think that foundational basis tells a lot about, the journey that God takes us on, and being, and like I said, be it some of the good, some of the not so good, and the challenging moments in time, all inclusive of that. If we go back to the beginning, to those foundational bases, it kind of lets us know, what does this all mean? Why was this all necessary? So with that said, that's what we're
Mm.
going to do at this time. So if you would, Candy, if you'd be so kind and share with us, kind of think back to your childhood and let us know what was it like for you growing up. Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there's any particular challenges that come to mind that you care to share, you can do that as well. Again, just to kind of give us the foundational basis of where your journey begins.
um, Again, I'm from Georgia, so that's where my journey begins. We're in the Air Force. That's how they met. It was a pretty good childhood, you know. Felt always abnormal. I guess that's the best way to say it. I felt abnormal most of the time. I feel like I fit in with a lot of kids. I was already a preacher's kid. I was a pastor's grandkid, so there was that label. Um, but I've always just felt like I was different from everybody else. Like when it came to the Word of God, I was entrenched in it. I love learning about it. Could memorize it quickly. So it was always in me. It was always there. Um, Me and my dad, nah, my dad, that's my favorite person. I am a daddy's girl. 150%. I would tell anybody that anytime. If you meet my dad, you meet me. If you meet me, you meet
Mm,
my dad. Because we're like we're two peas in a pod. We're that alike. Um, Things were good up until I was about 11. And that's when my mom had a mental breakdown.
mm,
And that was a tough road to navigate because there was a relationship that I wanted with her and I never got to have that. It was lost at that point in time, and things were never the same. Um, I spent I was homeschooled for the first 6 grades. So from grades 1 through 6, I was homeschooled. When I went to school in 7th grade, I experienced my first bullying. And
Mm.
that was rough too, because you already feel like you're not like other kids. But then there are kids who remind you you're not like everybody else. I didn't dress like them. I didn't talk like them. I didn't do things the way they did. So it was rough. 7th and 8th grade, I was picked on. And that was one road that was hard to recover from. And a reason why I want to reach out to young people, because I understand how hard it is to navigate when you feel like you're different from other people, and you feel like people are picking on you not because of who you are, but because what you have they don't. Whether it's a level of intelligence, whether if it's a level of understanding, whether if it's your family dynamic, whether it's where you live, the vehicles, somebody has an issue with something with you. And most of the time, it's not your personality. It's not the exact person that you are, but it's what they don't have that you do that brings out that jealousy and that bullying. So experiencing that was great because my I have a little brother and he didn't go through that. He was not picked. He seemed to fit in with everybody. And I just didn't. And I knew I wouldn't. But it took a long time to accept I was different, that I'm not like everybody else. And I want a lot of young people to know it's okay that you're different. It's
Mhm.
okay that you're not the same as everybody else because God gave you certain gifts special for his kingdom special. And it's okay. If that sets you apart from we're already supposed to be a unique people. We're
Mhm.
already supposed to be different as it is. Some of us are a little more different than everybody else. Some of us have a Solomon calling. Some of us have a David calling. Some of us have an Abraham calling. Some of us have, and that's my favorite one, Samuel, a Samuel calling on our lives. Some of us have an Elijah calling. And it's okay to be, each one of these people were separate, they were set apart, they had a purpose. And it's hard to live in purpose sometimes when you know the enemy is coming to squash that purpose. He doesn't know what your purpose is, but he understands as long as you're following Christ, there's something that's going to be detrimental to his kingdom. And he doesn't like that at all. So he wants to knock that out. He wants to squash that as soon as possible. Well, when do most people go through the most stuff in life? When they're a child.
Mhm.
The enemy will attack while you're a child. Why? Because your brain is still malleable. You're still vulnerable. You're still fallible at that point. So it's the easiest time to get bullying and parent issues, and because in the long run it affects you later if you don't deal with it and you don't face it. So
Wow.
that was my childhood. I didn't always make the best decisions. When my mom had her mental breakdown and we pretty much the relationship broke apart. Um, I made a choice and decision to move out when I was 17. I left home, didn't go back. But the choice of who I left home with wasn't the best choice either. And I paid the price for that. And I will tell anybody in a heartbeat, my past does not define me. It
Mm.
just set me on my direction. Your past doesn't define you, it just gives you direction. Stop looking and staring in the rearview mirror at what's behind you because it's behind you. When you drive a car, you're not looking in the rearview mirror while you're driving all the time. You glance at it every once in a while to see what was behind you, but your eyes are focused on the destination. And sometimes the enemy throws things to take you off the destination because that end point is where God is blessing you. He's opening doors for you. He's doing things through you. And again, the enemy does not like his kingdom attacked. So he
Mm.
will try to attack you first. But when you get hold and grasp to that purpose and you keep your eyes focused on that prize, let Satan be mad. That's his problem, not yours.
Hmm. Love that. Love that. Wow. Wow. Well, let me first off say I appreciate your transparency and sharing what you've already done so far, as your upbringing as a child, and this is why I like to have that part of the conversation, because it just speaks volumes. One thing in particular that resonated with me as you were sharing, when you talked about that struggle of fitting in, and I know it affects different people in different ways. When we talk about, in your case, quote unquote not fitting in affected you in terms of being bullied. But when you look at it from a godly perspective, which I know you have, over the years, you kind of understand that the not fitting in was not necessarily a bad thing. It was a reason
Mhm.
why you weren't fitting in. Yeah,
Mhm.
we like to think of it. We like to limit it as to being, I don't talk the same or dress the same, and or
Mhm.
whatever. And those things may be a part of it, but the bigger, much deeper picture is sometimes you don't fit in because you just weren't built to fit in.
That
It's a reason
it
why
was a
you're not fitting in. It was a
protection, even
protection.
though we didn't see
Yeah,
it
we didn't
that
see it at
way.
the time because, like you said, we were kids. And to your point, this is when the enemy is wanting to infiltrate as best as possible. Why you don't know, why you don't even understand
Mhm.
why you're not fitting in. If I can distract you, if I can get you off guard before you realize what God has created you to be, what He has designed for you, if I can throw you off track ahead of time and get you caught up in some other distractions or mess that would derail you, then that's a victory for Him if He can make that
Mhm.
happen. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just so powerful about that fitting in, because even myself, and I know you're not directly, you may not directly be aware of this, but like even in right now, I'm in finishing up my book that's coming out, and that's one of the themes that I speak of in my upcoming book is about that fitting in process and
Mhm.
how you go back so many years ago and I didn't understand why I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
Now today, I get why I didn't.
Yeah.
Why
It
it
makes
felt
sense
it makes
now,
sense
even
now,
though
but
it
back
didn't
it didn't.
then.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
then you're like, why don't
It
nobody
hurt
like me? Yeah,
really
it hurts you.
bad.
It's like
Yeah.
don't nobody like me, or don't
Yeah.
nobody want to hang out with you, or
Yeah.
why
What did I do
what did
wrong?
I do? I thought I was a
Yeah.
nice person. I thought I was friendly. I thought I was kind, and all of those things. Well, why don't I have more friends? Why is my social life not more expansive? Why do people treat you wrong when you're nice to them? Those kind of
Yes.
things, kind of play out. But again, the more in tune you are, and the sooner you become aware of the what God has for you, and how He's
Yes.
designing the path for your life, the purpose for your life. That's when the light bulbs begin to come on. You're like,
Come on.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, now I
Now
get
it
it.
makes
Now it's
sense.
now it's
Yeah.
starting to make
It's
sense
all
to
things
me.
work together for good,
Right, right.
even though at the time it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. And even after you get the revelation of understanding the why of it all, you still have to understand that the attacks are going to still come.
Yes.
There's going to be some moments in time that God will allow some things to come through, and they won't always feel good. Or you're going to
Yeah.
question the timing of. You're going to like, man, why I got to deal with this right now
Yes.
in this moment? But it's all for a purpose, and it's not a purpose to harm or destroy. And when it's coming
Mm-hmm.
from God, it's a purpose to set you up to either be
Yes.
blessed or to equip you to be a blessing to someone.
Somebody.
So it's going to be
Yes.
one of those two things. But in either
Yeah.
one, in either scenario, it's going to be a win-win situation. So that's what's important to kind of keep in mind in that respect. So again,
Yes.
appreciate you sharing that. That's
No
very
problem.
powerful. So we're gonna go a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
You already kind of gone a little deeper already, but we're gonna go a little
It
bit
goes deeper
deeper.
than
We're
that.
gonna go a little deeper. And when I say deeper, obviously you kind of you go through your childhood. You've made some decisions, like you said, some that you are pleased with, some that you question. I might have should have gone a different path on that, but nevertheless, as you grow in life, you're going to encounter a series of storms. But
Mm-hmm.
every now and then, we encounter those storms that are a little bit heavier, a little bit weightier than the norm.
Mm-hmm.
To the point that when we get hit with those type of storms, we may actually question, how am I going to get through this? Even
Yeah.
those of us who might be in the faith, we might question, how am I supposed to overcome this? This seems to be insurmountable. This seems to be something that is just,
Yeah.
there's no way out or no way around this. So,
Yeah.
with that said, if you would, tell us about a time. when that's exactly how you felt, that you felt like you were facing something, a moment of adversity that was so over the top, that was so intense that you questioned, you doubted that you could
Mhm.
make it through. Obviously, you're here today, so God made a way for you to get through. But maybe at that
Yes.
time, you weren't thinking so much in the sense that this was going to happen, that this was even possible. So, if you
Yeah.
would share with us what that situation was like for you in the example that you're about to share, and what was ultimately that breakthrough moment where you were able to kind of see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of that situation.
So, I have two books that I want to share that's related to this.
Okay.
When Life is Lifing, which is a compilation book of three books. It's I'm Still Standing Here, My Favorite Angel, and Delusional When I Lost My Mind in Love. And then I have one called Clipped Wings, and they deal with my life
Mhm.
completely. They also deal with Clipped Wings deal with me delving more into thoughts of suicide, thoughts of self harm, because there were points in life that I was there. Well, and I'm Still Standing Here, I bring up an instance where my first ex husband had gotten in trouble. He decided he wanted to mess with this girl who looked similar to me. And they went and they committed six armed robberies.
Mm.
Well, when he went to jail, I decided I was going to move on with my life. We had not officially divorced at that point in time, but at that point in time, I didn't care. If you're going to step outside, so be it. You did you. I'm about to do me.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was angry about that. So he told the detectives that I participated in two of the armed robberies.
Wow.
I went to jail for 90 days and I lost custody of my oldest for 6 months. When I was sitting in jail those 90 days, I said, God, I don't understand. I don't get it. Why am I here? I know I didn't do anything. I know I didn't participate. So why am I sitting here? What is going on? And he said, because you didn't leave the situation properly.
Mm.
He said, you need to walk away from it the right way. Divorce him. Go about your business. Leave him all the way alone. And so when I bring up about making decisions that were not the best, those were one of the decisions that was my first ex was not the best decision at all. I knew who he was. I knew what kind of person he acted like, but I'm a fixer. I
Mm.
am. I'm a fixer. And I'm not even empathetic. I'm apathetic. I am to the point where I will literally place myself in harm's way for other people because that's my heart. That's the heart God gave me. As bad as I've been treated in life, I hate no one. I pray for every single person who's treated me bad. And I ask God to never give them what they gave me. Most people are just like, I couldn't forgive that girl. There's no way a man could have got me locked up for 90 days. And you can't say what you woulda, coulda, shoulda done when you've never been in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
He was abusive. And I used to say when I was younger, there is no way I'd ever be or stay in a relationship with a man who was abusive towards me. Spent 2.5 years in one because the coulda, woulda, shoulda. But when I was in the situation, I handled it differently because I thought I could fix him. I thought I could love him enough that he would want to change for me.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I ended up broken because of it. At one point in time, he had me fighting girls who he was dating while he was supposed to be with me. I'm fighting them over him. And he ain't worth the fight, the breath, the air, none of that. He's not worth any of it. But I thought I could be enough to the where he would want to stay faithful to me if I did this for him, if I did that for him, if I gave him certain things, he would want to stay. He'd want to be faithful. You can't fix anybody who does not want to be fixed. You can't. Hurt people, hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And he spent his whole childhood hurt. So to him, breaking me was a goal. Making me into what he wanted me to be was a goal. That's when that whole down chick thing, the main chick thing was popular.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you down for your man, you ain't got to worry about him doing it. No, sweetheart, don't do that to yourself. Don't, because he's not worth it. She's not worth it. They are not. He has grandiose narcissism. He thinks very highly of himself. He thinks he's God's gift to women. He thinks that every dime that he gets, he needs to splurge, he needs to show out, he needs to do this, this, and this. Understand when you're with people like that, it's a control issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to control, and they don't pick just anybody to control. They want to control the people who have the most love and most care that they give. Those are the people because they're easier to control for them. Because you'll want to do anything to please them. And that's all they ever want. Somebody to please them. They don't care if they make you happy or not. Then when it's over, said and done, they on to the next one. But they still want to keep you dangling on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
They want to keep you around. If I knew then what I know now, it wouldn't have happened at all. He wouldn't have been the father of my oldest child. He wouldn't have been. Because I thought that would change him too. Giving him a son, dude, you got a son. This is somebody to live for.
Mm-hmm.
He encouraged the girl that he was dating to say to my son, call her mama.
Mm-hmm.
I carried him for 9.5 months. I went through a whole episiotomy to put who mama?
Mm-hmm.
Who's his mama? My oldest has my whole face. Who's mama? I caught him and her in the bed with my son screaming next to it. When I came to, because I blacked out, when I came to, I had a weapon in my hand and I was going to hurt both of them. Relationships like that will push you to a point of where you'll disassociate sometimes. And I
Mm-hmm.
did. I would disassociate. We would get in literal fist fights in the middle of the road, knock down drag outs. I wear a dent on this eye where he pushed me into a drain when I tried to take my son out the car and leave with him. He told me if I ever took my son from him, he would take him and I'd never see him again. That's another form of control that they use is fear. When I spent those 90 days in jail, he would send letters to his mama and have her send them to me. I love you. I miss you. I care about you. What he didn't realize was that girl that he was messing with was in the same cell with me.
Hmm.
And that girl spent 90 days scared for her life. I'm not going to touch you. For what? For what? You're not worth that time or energy, sweetheart. And if I wanted to touch you, it would have been long before we ended up in jail together. Believe that. She wasn't worth the energy at all. Plus, I knew while he was sending letters to me, he was sending them to her too. Because her cellmate would tell me. I grew up with her. I went to school with her cellmate. I knew her. And I knew if I needed anybody to have my back, she would have had it over having her back any day. But you don't stoop to their level
Mm-hmm.
at all. It would have been easy to stoop to his level. It would have been easy to hurt him the way he did me, but would have been worth it. I had already played that game before. The first girl he cheated on me with. I'm not cheating with her. Yes, yes, you are. I saw you and her at her mom at your mama house, holding hands, kissing, and everything. That's the day he found out I could be very vindictive, and I was very vindictive. I knew his best friend liked me because he told me. Like the movie, two can play that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the game. It broke his soul. You're not supposed to be happy when you hurt somebody, but that day I was very happy that it broke his soul. I wanted him to feel everything that I felt because, sir, I gave you 150% of me, and it was never enough. I was still a fool even after that to stay with him and keep giving him chance after chance after chance. You know what I learned? I'm not God. God can keep giving you chance after chance after chance. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. That's all right. You good. That we're mm-mm. I'm done giving chances. You had your opportunities. No. And the second ex did the same thing. Threw it in my face too. And cheated. And gave me an STD while I was pregnant, which is how my second son ended up in heaven.
Wow.
When I tell these young ladies, baby, when he shows you the red flag, run, run, run as fast as you can. Do not stay there because you will never turn a red flag into a green one, ever. Stop trying to fix these people who don't want to be fixed. They don't want to be. You can love them, care about them, walk the world and back for them. They don't want to be fixed. They don't want to change. And there's nothing you can do to make them change. And if they do change because of you, it's a lie. It's a total lie because they'll go at give them a good 6 months, they'll go right back to who they were. They never meant it. They changed for you long enough so you stay out their ear, so you stop nagging them to fix themselves. And they'll be right back to who they were, and they'll be right back to hurting you the exact same way all over again.
Wow. Again, I got to start off with appreciate your transparency and sharing what you did right there. And there's so many, so many gems that you dropped just in that conversation alone. You know, right offhand, of course, I completely identify with you when you speak about that that mindset of wanting to fix. Again, another topic of conversation
Yeah,
that I speak to in my upcoming book as well because I've been guilty of that.
yeah.
You like you said, you get with somebody, you genuinely like them, but you also God gave you the discernment to see that there are some challenges here, that there's some brokenness, that
Mhm.
there's some things that need repairing, but you're not the one that's supposed to be the fixer. It's okay for you to
Mhm.
be somebody that's encouraging, to be someone that
Mhm.
says, I'll even pray for you. But
Yeah,
that doesn't necessarily mean that you're supposed to get into a relationship with them and
yeah,
try to formulate a bond and all of that because the reality is that they're simply not ready for you
yeah,
yet. Whether it's I'm not ready to be fixed, or
yeah.
just again simply that the fixing that needs to be done is not you're not the one to do it.
To do it,
It's above
yeah.
it's above your pay grade. It's above you.
Yes, it's above me.
It's above you, literally. There's some divine fixing that needs to take
Yeah,
place that you personally can't do. Now,
yeah,
if you encounter this person down the road where they've had a chance to heal, to
yeah,
forgive, to recover from whatever it is that got them to that state, and things can work out, then we having a different conversation.
yeah,
But it's when you're that kind of person, and like I said, I totally identify with you when you're that kind of person who, you have that empathy, that apathy, that wanting to come in and thinking that you can just
yeah,
say the right words and do the right
yeah,
things, and that's just going to transform them. And like I said, I'm gonna clean them up, I'm gonna fix them up,
yeah.
and then they'll be this all
This
this
wonderful,
greatness, this
amazing
wonderful,
person.
amazing person that I
Yeah,
know that they can be. And what you're thinking is correct in the sense that they can be
yeah.
this great and wonderful person. But again, you're stepping out of your lane.
Sometimes we see the good in people
We see the good,
that
and
they
that's nothing
can't even
wrong.
see in
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah, and that's nothing wrong with you seeing the good in
Yeah.
people. But that doesn't mean that's your role to go in and again to correct and fix it.
We making
Um,
them into seasons when they're supposed to be only a week long.
right, right. And so, and then like I said, and then in the end, when you don't. successfully accomplished the fix, or when you realize that the fix is temporary, and then it unwinds itself, then you're like feeling, like why would you? All the energy, all the time,
Yeah.
the conversations, the finances in some instances, and
Yeah.
everything else that I poured in to fix you,
Yeah.
and then you go out and do things like cheat on me, or you go out
Yeah.
and do things like put your hands on me, or you go out and do things like speak, falsely of me,
Hmm.
or inappropriately of me. What did I do to
To
deserve
deserve
that?
that. Yeah.
And so now you're feeling a little, feeling stupid, feeling silly, feeling some kind of
Insecure.
way,
Yeah. Your self
insecure.
esteem, because he
Yeah.
did. Both of them destroyed by self esteem, but in two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The first one used the words and he used his hands.
Mm-hmm.
The second one did it through his cheating and through saying little things like, oh, you don't need to wear that makeup or that eyeshadow or that lipstick. I like my girls with longer hair. Sir, so what you're telling me is you don't want me to be myself anymore.
Right. That's
And
it.
we tend to do that. We will sacrifice who we are to become who they say they want. But that's not our job either. We're
Right.
supposed to stay true to who we are. You don't give up who you are to become what they need or what they claim
Mm-hmm.
they want,
Yeah.
because it'll still never satisfy them. It would never please them.
Yes, that whole people pleasing mentality, and even take it further, which again is another subject that I've been speaking to and talking about a lot lately. Is just you create this codependency,
Mhm.
so it's like you'll, and that's a part where for your own self you have to realize what parts of me haven't been fixed, because we'll go
Mhm.
in and only see the brokenness and the stuff that needs to be straightened out in the person that we call ourselves trying to rescue and
Yeah.
save, not even taking into account that they not only are they not ready for you, you aren't even ready
Even ready
for
for you.
for
And
for
that's what I
somebody,
discovered
because
with both of them,
yeah,
that my relationship with my mom
mm-hmm,
affected that, cuz I knew how my dad treated my mom,
mm-hmm,
how he loved her, cared
mm-hmm,
about her flowers, but because she and I lost that relationship and that love between us got injured, I married two men who were just like her, thinking if I loved them enough, it would be to the point where she could recognize I
mm-hmm,
still loved her through it.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's not how that works either.
no,
Childhood drama has to be dealt with, because if you don't deal with childhood drama, with childhood injuries, it leaks and bleeds over to
yeah,
adult
adulthood.
conversations and adult relationships. And now you're wanting to fix and change because something in the past wasn't fixed and
Mm-hmm,
changed. And they harp in on that on you.
mm-hmm,
Oh yeah, I went through this with my mom. And the ones that you're trying to fix, baby, they got wounds deeper than you do.
mm-hmm. But like you said, you can't leave yourself out in the process. And it's not being selfish or anything like that. It's like you got some healing and some fixing to do. And so, even if you were justified in moving forward to try to help somebody else, I can't help you if I'm broke down. If I'm,
Yeah.
like when we talk about, how can I pour into you if my cup is empty?
Cup's empty. Yeah.
Or if my glass is cracked.
Yeah.
What am I gonna give to you if everything I have is leaking out on the sides and broken apart?
Hmm.
And but I'm ignoring it, trying to act like I got it all fixed and all
Yeah.
together, trying to help you, and you got some fixing too, and thus the codependency kicks in. I'm looking at you and I see that you have a need, but then I also have a need to be needed too. And so
Hmm.
I make myself feel good when I do something for
For
you,
you.
but it's
Yeah.
not fixing what I got
Yeah.
going on. And codependency would be okay if I was with the right. If I'm gonna be codependent on anybody,
Hmm. That part, I'm not even gonna be codependent. I'm gonna be
I'll
fully
be fully
dependent on
dependent.
Jesus.
Yeah, we don't even say codependent. If I'm gonna be dependent on
100% dependent
somebody,
on Jesus. But we do that too when we're trying to
yeah,
fix people like that, is we allow them to become, what is the second commandment? Thou shalt have no other God before me.
right, right. So we end up
And we
making them
make
that.
them into a God,
Mm-hmm.
ignoring God, because we want to fix them and we want to make them better. And we feel like if we make them number one, that'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And God is serious with that. Thou shalt have no other God
Yeah.
before. Me.
He said, I need you to be dependent on me first before you go out here
Mhm.
thinking you trying to go out and fix stuff and fix people and and speak on stages and write books and tell people how to do this, that, other. You if you're not
Yeah.
even dependent on me, what message are you sending? Is it my
Yeah.
message or is it your message? Well, how is that message being
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 sent, yeah.
sent?
And how
You
can it be
know,
received if it's not from the right place?
you were just
If
taking
you're
the
writing in that pain, if
right.
you're singing in that pain, and it's like, no, I need you to be from a healed place because your purpose is to help somebody else find their healing and
Mm-hmm.
find their purpose and find the change that they need. Well, how
Right.
are they gonna find it if you're still writing from a place of pain, of hurt, of anger?
Mm-hmm.
That's not helping them. You helping them keep doing
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing.
Yeah, I had I have a mentor. She talked about that recently at an event I was at, and she said that she so oftentimes have seen speakers stand on stage that they have powerful messages, but they're speaking from a place where they're bleeding.
Mhm.
And she talked about they're bleeding, they're hurting, but
Mhm.
yet they're trying to speak to somebody. How do I stand on the stage and talk to you about self care and I don't care, I don't take care of
Care
myself?
myself.
How do I
Yeah.
talk to you about the importance of mental health and my mental health is all
Yeah.
tore up? You can't.
That's why me and my dad talk about that often. How can I say I love you and I
uh,
don't love
and I
myself?
don't love me.
Because that's one of the commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
If I don't love me, how am I supposed to love you? And I've learned to get far away from people like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you say you love me, but I see you're not loving yourself, I'm good. Because there's no way possible you could love me. None.
No, there's no way possible. Or you're going to create a situation that is going to it's going to make it confusing, complicated,
Mm-hmm.
inconsistent, and I don't need that. But it's
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, when you're that type of individual who has the
Yeah.
big heart and wants to come
Fix
alongside
everything.
and be there for
Yeah.
people, it's a really difficult thing to break from, and that's why I said I totally identify with you because I know what that's like,
Yeah.
personality wise, because I've had that personality, and it's been something that has been a lifelong thing
Mm-hmm.
to work through and get better at. I'm not
Yeah.
even saying that I've even perfected it, but
Yeah.
what I used to allow, I don't necessarily allow the
Yeah.
way I used to do it, but there's still more work to do
To be
in the
done.
sense of,
Yeah.
especially when you think about the assignment. When I think about
Mm-hmm.
my assignment, when you think about your assignment, it
Yeah.
becomes even more prevalent that you got to get this thing
Yeah.
right and you got to get
And
the order.
therapy is good with
That's a whole nother,
that.
yeah. Yes.
Take that there. I have been in therapy 13 years now. So it's almost as long as my middle. My middle is
Mm-hmm.
14. And I started therapy right after I had him and walking into having my youngest. I did therapy because I had a huge fear that what happened to my second son would happen again.
Mm.
So I needed to navigate that. I needed to navigate accepting what my second ex had done and not hold it against him because that
Mm-hmm.
animosity was there. It was deeply rooted. So I always recommend when people are like, well, how do I move on? How? Therapy. Find you a psychiatrist, find you a psychologist, find you a therapist, find you a counselor, find someone who can give you the tools so
Mm-hmm.
you can not just cope with it because
Mm-hmm.
I'm I just finished my bachelor's in psychology. I'm in grad school right now getting my degree, my doctorate in clinical psychology. And a big thing that psychology pushes is coping.
Mm-hmm.
Well, coping isn't healthy either because all you're learning how to do is still have the issue. You're
Mm-hmm.
just learning how to deal with the issue.
Mm-hmm.
When you push and you encourage healing, healing says, I'm done with the issue. And just like you have a knife wound or something like that that heals from the inside out, you might have a scar on the top of it, but it's healed. It won't open again unless you open it or you allow somebody else to open it. Coping is okay with certain situations, but when you're talking about things that are deeply rooted, that's healing is necessary. You need to get the trowel and dig that weed out of your garden, literally.
Yeah, like when I think about the word coping, the word that I guess that I counter with it immediately is like to be with able to withstand. And but even in the
Mhm.
withstanding moment, it's always intended to be temporary. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, when I get that initial hit,
Mhm.
where it kind of knocks the wind out of you, kind of thing. Okay, let me brace myself for this moment. Let me process this,
Mhm.
and again, that processing period might involve tears, anger, frustration, and all of those
With the
things.
tears. Yeah.
But while that's okay for you to have that dumping, that releasing, I just
Mhm.
can't stay stuck here
Yeah.
because to your point, if I'm just coping, then I'm never really initiating the healing of it.
Yeah.
I'm
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 never
just
really
I'm
dealing with it.
I'm just never
Yeah.
really did. I'm putting it in a place where I know it's still there, and it just
Mhm.
allows me to carry it around.
Mhm. All
And
you're doing is putting a lot of dirt on top of it.
right, I'm
That's
just gonna
it.
cover it. Let me put a little
Yeah.
band-aid on it, so that it doesn't, reveal itself. I don't have to look at it all the time, but it's still there.
Mhm.
So to your point when you shared earlier about, knowing what your ex did to you, and in this scenario how it impacted you actually losing a child, and
Mhm.
how you didn't say I had to let that go. What you basically said was you had to forgive.
Mhm.
Now, forgiving, and this is something that a lot of people miss, the forgiving doesn't mean that you condone the behavior. It doesn't mean that
Exactly.
I'm saying that what you
Yeah, that
did or
what it
what you
was okay.
said that was
Yeah.
okay. It was not okay.
No.
But I can forgive because that forgiveness was never about you anyway. It's for me. It's
Mhm.
for me to be able to
Yeah.
start the healing process. The forgiveness is what ignites the healing
Yeah.
process. Because until I forgive, then I just walk around with the open wound. And if
Mhm.
you were physically wounded and you walked around with it hanging open like that,
It's gonna
you
get
it's going
infected.
to get infected, which would make
Mhm.
what was already rough on you worse, and it
And I dealt
spreads
with
to
that with
other.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to get to the point of where we were married for 14 years, my second ex. And it was time after time. There was emotional cheating, physical cheating. I had just had back surgery.
Mm,
Another STD. Another. And when I got to this last place when I was in North Carolina, I almost literally died several times. I was so stressed from the situation. I was having heart issues and migraines that was so bad. 2, 3 days I couldn't open my eyes. I didn't want to eat anything. I was in and out the hospital almost every day. You know what I'm saying? And so I got to the point of where it was just like I can't do this anymore.
mm-hmm,
So I had always talked to my dad and my best friend about what was going on. So I went home. 2022, I went home. What's 2022? Yeah. No, 2023, I went home. Um my oldest had just graduated, and I sat down and I talked to my dad and my best friend, and I just told them I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I am to the point where I could actually cause him bodily harm.
mm,
And that's not the place I want to be with him at all.
right.
Which they had already been waiting on me to get fed up and move on.
Mm,
But they loved me enough to say, hey, we're not going to force you. Just know we're here when you're ready. And
mm-hmm,
when I said I was ready, I came back. It was right before the 4th of July. And I said, I want a divorce. And he was like, oh, you go get your independence around Independence Day, huh?
mm,
And for weeks, I went through a Spanish Inquisition. Well, what happened and what went wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I've forgiven you for what you did. But every time I look at you, I feel anger and I want to vomit. And I should not feel like that towards somebody I'm supposed to be in love with and married to.
mm-hmm,
That's not right. That's not fair to you and that's not fair to me. But what I did do though was I made him, because my kids never knew what was going on. They didn't know. They didn't know about his infidelity or anything because I never told them. I never wanted to tarnish the image that they had of
mm-hmm,
him. So when I said I wanted the divorce and they started asking, well, why? Ask your father. Ask him why I want to walk away. And I made him tell them exactly why, because he knew why. He knew it. Well, God doesn't condone infidelity either. He doesn't condone mental abuse. He doesn't condone emotional abuse. He doesn't condone financial abuse because guess who was paying all the bills? So, with that being said, I'm done. I'm through. And God will let us sometimes go to the point of where we're like, we're fed up. And He's just like, about time. I've been waiting. I've been waiting the
Mm-hmm.
past 10 years for you to be tired of this situation. And
Mm-hmm.
to your point, crying, a friend and I were talking about that the other day. And I said, did you ever notice when you're at the end of a situation or you're at the end of your rope for something, you do that deep belly soul cry?
Mm-hmm.
You could cry 20 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, face swollen whole. But once you finish with those tears, it's like the whole situation is gone. It's solved. You said your last thing about it in those tears. You're done with it. You've closed that door. And I had to do that. I had to cry those tears and I had to say, you know what? I cannot. I cannot anymore. It's
Mm-hmm.
not worth it. It's not. And then he proved who he was to the kids. Because I didn't say anything. He made promises to them. I didn't say anything. I just sat back and I watched. He hasn't spoken to them in over a year, almost 2 years now since the last time he spoke to them.
Wow.
My phone number hasn't changed. It's been the same since my middle was born. My email hasn't changed, but he made that choice. And I made mine. And I'll stand by mine all day, every day. No, I didn't listen to God. Yes, I was desperate. Yes, I wanted to be loved and cared about and fix people. And I thought that that was going to solve my issues. 2 years later, I'm sitting where God wanted me to always be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting doing what He always wanted me to do. It should have started way sooner. Yes, it definitely should have. The gifts have been there for a lifetime. They were prophesied over while I was in my mother's womb. They were prophesied over me. But again, the attack of the enemy. And when you're not standing in God where you're supposed to be, the distractions are easy to come.
Yeah.
And it's easy to pay attention to the distractions over hearing the Holy Spirit when He speaks to you.
So true. So true. Wow. Wow. So let me ask you this, Candy. When you, we've obviously talked about some very deep stuff, and like I said, storms can go that direction, and sometimes storms are just very minimal annoyances, if you will. You know,
Hmm.
like a mosquito, a gnat in your ear, or whatever. But
Yeah.
nevertheless,
And then some
uh,
can be hurt.
right, and some can be hurricane, tsunami like.
Yeah.
But what I am curious about is when you do find yourself facing adverse moments, challenging times, regardless of the magnitude of it, what is it that you like to generally do in terms of your process, your routine, your regimen, if you would, that kind of works best for you when facing a challenging moment?
James 5, and I think it's verse 16. Study to show thyself approved. A workman need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. When I'm facing anything, I like to throw myself in the word
Mm,
because no matter what, God always gives me or brings to my remembrance a scripture that I need for that moment that I need to get me through. And I like to meditate. I have beautiful conversations with God. I have revelation based conversations with God. I'm worried about, oh, my mindset is on, Lord, look, this week of school was rough. And he's like, okay, it was rough. But here, let me show you this. You've been
mm,
studying Judges. Let me show you about this with Samson and how you acting like Samson right now. How for me. And that's how I get through that. Keeping my mind on God. Pray, like Paul said, pray without ceasing. I pray often. I'm always talking to God about something, whether it's something little or something big, because I know my God shall supply all my needs according to His riches and glory through Christ Jesus. Well, I have Jesus. So I know God is supplying my needs. My dad always says, if you're going to worry, why pray?
Mm.
If you're going to pray, why worry?
Mm-hmm.
You got to pick one. Faith over fear. You got to pick one. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. God has given us peace in the middle of the. If Paul can sit there with a thorn in his side, whatever it was that was aggravating him, and still say, even in my weakness, I am strong, then who am I to complain? I read about people in the Bible and I'm like, their lives was way worse than mine. And they ain't have no running water. They didn't have no electricity. They didn't have a bed to lay in. Like, wait, they didn't have. And I'm complaining. I'm complaining. Why am I complaining? I don't have to live like they live. Even now, there are countries I don't have to live like they live. I'm blessed to have what I have. And if God gave it to me, nobody can take it away.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how hard the enemy tries, nobody can take that away. So, whenever you're dealing with adversity, whenever you feel like things are crazy, whatever things are pure, whatever things are holy, whatever things are virtue, think on the stop thinking about your problem and stop thinking on the things of God.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to get you through. That's going to be the foundation that you'll always be able to stand on.
Love that. Love that. Just reflecting real quick. I like how when you talked about, you love to meditate. I know like a lot of times people who don't meditate, they automatically assume the stereotypical version of meditation that
Mhm.
where you're sitting there inside and you're
Mhm.
and all of that or whatever. But I love the spin that you put on because I think it's relevant. Is that you associate meditation being the equivalent of conversation. You say I have wonderful conversations with God, and so and I'm similar in that regard. Like particularly like when I'm walking the dog every morning, I
When I'm
have
driving the
this. I'm
car on
having it or
purpose.
driving in the car. I'm
Yeah.
talking like like people might say you crazy. You talk to yourself. I have great conversations, talking to myself in the car, walk on a walk, talking to God, and it's amazing how there'll be times where I'm talking to Him about something, and it's something that I'm confused about or not clear
Mhm.
on, and then here I am explaining it, and in the midst of the conversation, he'll review. Next thing I'll know, I'll be speaking the answer to
Mhm.
to what it is I'm
Yeah.
talking about. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, but
Yeah.
that's how God will work. He'll put it in your
Yeah.
as you're having that conversation. He'll get actually have you talk out the answer to whatever you thought was the
And people
problem
don't
before you
realize
started.
that's
People
the
don't.
purpose of having the
That's
Holy
how you have to.
Spirit.
Yeah,
That's why we have the Holy Spirit. So God downloads to the Holy Spirit, and the
like,
Holy Spirit speaks it to us. And it's
like,
just like, hey, you didn't think about that, did you? No,
like,
I did not
nah.
think that that was going to be the answer. Or God will sometimes hit you. That was not the answer I was looking for, Jesus. That's another problem. That's not. Wait, they're related? Okay. So if I
Uh huh.
solve that problem, it'll solve this problem. So I might
Hmm.
need to backtrack and solve this problem. And then you find yourself not just meditating and praying, but you're being thankful for what you do have and what He's already solved for you. He's
Absolutely.
already, and you walk in that faith that God has. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You're walking in the fact that I know God will do it, but at the same time, you're accepting what His will is
Hmm.
about it. Because sometimes we want things a certain way.
Hmm.
We want God to answer it a certain way. And God is like, but if I answer it your way, this, and this won't happen. But if I answer it my way, this, and this will happen. And something a little extra.
Right. Right. And also love the fact that you put on you talked about about us not focusing in on our problem, um because again, and I talk about this all the time. It's like that problem, that storm, it can't even come your way unless God gives it
Mhm,
permission to. So if He's allowing it to come through to your doorstep, to your street,
mhm.
then you got to know in that moment, if you're in relationship with Him, you already know, okay, you
Yeah.
don't mean this for my harm.
Mhm.
So instead of me worrying about the problem in itself, I need to be focusing. Okay, Lord, what am I supposed to get from this?
Yeah.
This is
All
this is
things work
this.
together for good
Yeah,
to
tell
them
me.
that are called according to his
Yeah,
will and his purpose.
like this is a little heavy right here. This is a little
Yeah.
much. Okay, and I know if you let it come, that it's not to hurt me. So
Yeah.
open my mind up, my eyes up, my ears up to get out of
Yeah.
this, to glean from this. What am I supposed to? What is the lesson here? So I can
Yeah.
embrace it and and leverage it into whatever direction you're wanting me to do. So
And we
get.
have to be encouraged too in the fact that when God breaks us,
Mhm.
he never breaks us to leave us broken or to be
Right.
worse than before we were broken. He breaks us to build us back better.
Mhm.
He builds better, not bitter. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things to say. God builds us better, never bitter. If you ever look at a potter, I follow this guy on Instagram and he makes bowls, cups, vases, things like that. And he's really, really good. Like I've not seen him make a mistake really at all. But when a potter makes a mistake, what do? They crush it, they break it, and
Mhm.
then they go back and they build it again till they get it exactly how they want it to look for the purpose that it has.
Mhm.
Then on
Yeah.
to building the next thing. So God is always building in us for a purpose, but sometimes He's got to break us before He can build us to that purpose.
Mhm.
And we get so stuck in being broken,
Yeah.
we're missing the rebuilding part.
Yeah. And sometimes a part of that breaking incorporates isolation. And so, and that's
Hmm.
something that I've had to learn even just recently over the past few years about. Don't look at isolation as being
Yeah.
abandonment or I
Hmm.
forgot you, but
Yeah.
that it's I sometimes he has to separate you from everything and everybody to, like you said, to break you down, to
Yeah.
reconstruct you, to reformulate format you,
Yeah.
to get you in that position to where you can now be
Be
useful.
useful.
You can be functioning. You can be, because
Yeah.
in the condition that you were in,
You
you weren't where
weren't.
you need to be. So
Yeah.
even in you sharing your story earlier about the 90 days in
Hmm.
jail, I had to put you in for 90 days of separation
Hmm.
from everybody,
Friends,
to
family, my
friends,
child,
family,
everybody. Yeah.
and even when I put you in space with the very person who was a part of why the reason why you were in there, I made
Hmm.
sure that somebody else was also in the space, so you didn't even have to worry about
Hmm.
being covered and protected. I get,
Yeah.
I had you guarded and I had them more worried about you than you were having to worry
Worried
about
about
them.
them.
So then that way that allowed you to not be distracted, because now you can focus on me
Uh,
for these next 90 days where I reformat, restructure your thinking, your
Oh, and by the way,
processing.
all those charges were dropped too.
Hmm.
Both of them were completely,
See.
totally dropped, expunged off my record, and I was able to go into the Navy with
So see
nothing
again,
up there. Yeah.
that's God saying, I never meant for this to destroy you. I had to
Yeah.
allow this to happen to get
Yeah.
you by
Because you were being
yourself.
too hard
You was
headed.
being too
Yeah.
hard headed. So
You weren't
let
listening.
you weren't
Yeah.
listening. So I gotta pull you to the side. I gotta put you in my own godly timeout,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let me
He
deal with you.
chastises
Let's
those that
check.
he loved.
Yeah,
Lord, stop spanking me, please.
yeah, right.
The
Like
spanking hurts.
right.
I think about too, when God took the children of Israel into the wilderness for 40 years. Well, what happened in 40 years? Several generations had to die off.
Hmm.
Now, Joshua could go, Caleb could go, but none of the other parts of their generation could go. Sometimes God puts us also in the wilderness or in a place of isolation because we have people that we will not let go of. We
Hmm.
have things that we will not let go of. And He has to get to the point where He has to push us. We have free will always, that will never change. But
Hmm.
sometimes He'll put us in a place where it's just like, okay, look, your free will is going way too far. It's going away. I need you to do what I told you to do and let go of these people I told you to let go of because as long as they're around, you're never going to reach your full potential. You're
Hmm.
never going to be who you're supposed to be. These people are not here to help. They're here to destroy. They don't want to pray. They're praying for you against you. They're not
Against
praying
you.
for you to build you up. They're not praying so that what you get and receive is beneficial. They're praying that you lose it and they get it. So they got to go. They have to leave. I can't allow them to stay because that's going to be detrimental to what I want to do in and for you. They're in the way. And you're in your own way. Sometimes God got to do it to get us out of our own way.
Wow, you're absolutely right. I mean, and it's interesting because I just recently saw a pastor online on internet do a video where he spoke to that very subject. Like sometimes God has to allow people to betray you
Mhm. Yeah, I
because
seen
you
that
you
one.
saw that
Yeah.
when and that was so powerful
Yeah.
because I've gone through that moment of betrayal by people
Yeah.
that you thought shouldn't have been betraying you,
Yeah.
but then when you get out of your feelings and taking it personal and
Mhm.
understand God had to allow your
Yeah.
that betrayal to take place because he's trying to separate you, he's trying to pull you apart from something
Mhm.
that you won't let go of.
Yeah.
And the only way that I can get you to let go of it is to let
Yeah.
them to
You know
show
how
you
a
who they
baby
are.
you know, you know how a baby grips stuff?
Uh-huh.
Babies have the strongest grip out of anybody in the world. A
Mm-hmm.
baby can grab some and they will. You have to literally fight them to make them let go.
Yep.
Sometimes we're just the same way with God. We want to hold on to it so bad. And God is like,
Why
but
are
you're
you holding
holding
on to
on to
that?
something that's hurting you. It's killing you spiritually, not just physically. But and that's where I got at with my second when I realized that holding on to him was killing my spirit,
Mm-hmm.
not just hurting me physically. The last time I went to the hospital in that situation, they thought I had had a stroke because I had lost feeling in my right arm.
Mm.
And one of the nurses that was as often as I had been, I knew a majority of the nurses. But this nurse, I had never seen him before. And so he came in and he was talking to me, and we just started talking about God and the whole nine. And they wanted to send me to another hospital because I gone to the VA hospital. And they wanted to send me to another hospital for observation overnight. And he said, no, she can go home. She's let go of what she need to let go of. She can go home.
Mm.
And I told him I wanted to go home. I had feeling back in my right arm. I had never saw that nurse again. And I
Wow.
believe that was an angel.
Mm-hmm.
Completely and totally. I do. Because it was something about him that was just different.
It
It
was
just felt
different.
really
Where he didn't
different.
fit in to the
Yeah.
setting that you were in. He was different.
Yeah.
He,
He was
he
different. And the way he spoke, it's like he knew me.
mm-hmm.
And the way he led the conversation, it was like,
That's not an
okay,
accident.
God, I see what you're
Yeah.
doing.
That is
You
not an
needed me
accident.
to, and that was the first time I had ever spoken about the divorce at that point, why I had wanted to have the divorce. But that opened the door for me
The first
to
time you
be
spoke
able to
about it
release it.
to a total stranger that you didn't
Yeah.
know that was at the doctor's office. Why then? Why now? Why him? Why was
And
I
I was
suddenly comfortable speaking about
speaking
that
to
to
him.
this
Yeah.
random, what appeared to be a random
Yeah.
person? It wasn't
And that
random,
was me
but
letting it go completely
yeah.
and totally just letting it go. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like there was a freedom in that.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't realize the freedom that comes when God says, let it go, and you actually let it go. And it feel like there's a weight off your chest. It feels like your brain isn't as muddled anymore. You feel like you can move better and you've got more peace and more joy. And you're just like, I should have let that go sooner. I should have been done with that
Right.
situation. Then you want to berate yourself for not letting go sooner.
And that is the funny part right there. When you like actually let go of something or you actually do something that God been telling you to do, and then you go back, why did I wait? What was I
Mhm.
thinking?
Yeah,
All this time I could have already been,
yeah.
and then you
Here,
realize
here, and here.
so it's almost like you feel silly about it. But
Yeah,
again, it's part of the journey. You live and you learn.
yeah,
Sometimes it takes us longer than others, but it's
yeah,
in the end, you can be in position to work it out, and that's what we love about God's patience. He doesn't
yeah.
He's like, okay, anytime, anytime,
Yeah.
Joe,
If he can be
anytime,
that
Candy, when
patient
you're
with
ready.
Israel and what they done, I know he
Yeah,
patient with me.
yeah. It's like whenever you're ready, I'm right here. You want
Yeah.
to go ahead. You want to bump your head again?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll be right here.
Go ahead, make them choices and decisions.
Right.
I already know what you're about to
I
do,
already know
and
what you
I
about
already
to
have a solution to it.
do.
Just go ahead,
It's like,
because you're not gonna do anything different.
right. You just added another section to the test.
Yeah.
So go ahead. You want to take a
Yeah.
longer version? Let's go.
Yeah.
But
Let's
I
do
got
it.
time.
Okay. I got all the
I got
time
all the
in the
time.
world and eternity.
Wow. So Candy, if you had an opportunity to speak to that younger version of yourself, when you think back on all of the challenges and things that you've gone through and overcome and in that nature, if you could speak to the younger Candy and impart in her some words that you wish she would have known back then, that you would have loved to been able to tell her, or just the fact that there might be somebody listening right now that are in that moment of what you've gone through and they don't see a way out, they don't know, and you might be the difference maker in telling them exactly what it is that they need to hear. What would be those words of encouragement that you'd have to share?
The first thing I would tell the younger Candy is be bolder. Speak. It doesn't matter how do it scared. Just do it. There were people when things were happening between me and my mom. I had a fear of telling my dad what was going on because I didn't know how he was going to look at me. And I wish I would have said things to him. I wish I would have been more open with him. And I want to tell others that be open, be transparent, be accountable. I'm accountable for my past. I made the choices and decisions, nobody else but me. Even despite what the other parties did, my reaction to their actions, I paid a price for. Be careful with the decisions that you make and use wisdom. God gave us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding for a reason. Sometimes I know it might not feel like it's the best answer, it might not feel like it's the best decision, but pray about it. Fast about it. Ask God for revelation. Ask Him for confirmation and affirmation behind it. Don't just jump the gun thinking that you're making the best decision because, like me, you could end up in a place where it's worse
Hmm.
than what you walked away from, or it's the same as what you walked away from. Don't do that to yourself. You have a reason and a purpose that you're here. But sometimes I've been told that the greatest amount of purpose is out in the graveyard
Mm.
because a lot of people had purpose, but their choices and their decisions caused their purpose to die with them. It was a decision that they should have made and they didn't. Make the right decision. If you had to sit back and wait 2, 3 years to get the right answer, make the right decision. Next thing I would want to say to myself is be careful of the people around you because not everybody is for your good. We're like trees. We have a trunk, we have roots, we have branches, but you have people who are leaves. Spring and the summer, they're there. Fall and the winter, they fall off. Some people are like weeds. All they want to do is suck you dry. That's it. That's all they're there for. That's what weeds and ivy do. Ivy takes all the nutrients out of a tree. Once the tree is dead and gone, it spreads to the next one. Be careful of the people that you allow in your life. And if it doesn't feel right, trust that. If there's a voice in your head saying don't, trust it. Listen to it. It can save you a lot of heartache and a lot of pain. Where you don't sit like me, 16, and I lost a majority of my youth trying to fix people that could never be fixed. When I really could have been with somebody who would have always seen me how I would have been. And it would have been two healed people together instead of one healed person trying to fix a broken person and ending up broken in the process too.
Mm.
Third, don't leave God out of it. If God is saying something to you, listen. If God wants you to come closer to Him, go closer. It's okay to be single for a while. It's okay to be in that place. It might be lonely in that place. It's going to feel physically lonely in that place. But that's the time to cultivate a closer relationship with God and discover your purpose in Him. God will have you where He wants you to be for when your future spouse comes along. You're right where you're supposed to be, and He will make you complementary to their calling.
Love that. Love that. And I like the very ending part where you said, even if it means you have to be single for a while, especially since your story incorporated abuse, because we don't ever want to take lightly um, a female being in an abusive situation, and thinking that that's okay. Because, like you said,
Mhm.
I'd rather you be single and alive
Mhm.
than loyal and laying in a casket because you
Mhm.
didn't make a move.
Yeah.
Whether it's your boyfriend or whether it's a husband or whatever. If
Yeah.
you're getting beat on, or you're being so emotionally or mentally abused, because it's again, abuse is not just limited to the physical,
Mhm.
but knowing when just for your own personal safety and well-being to step away, even if you're wanting to work something out with that
Mhm.
person, you can work something out, but it may mean that a separation needs to take place first
Yeah.
for safety's sake. One, for
Yeah.
what they might be doing to you, and what your pent up frustration and taking it might cause you to want to
Yeah.
do in
Do to them.
retaliation to
Yeah.
them for what they've been doing. So to keep both parties upright, with there
Mhm.
being any kind of remote possibility of reconciliation, if that's meant to be, you might have to have a temporary physical separation from one another to facilitate that happening. So we are no way or means trying to encourage you to
Yeah.
stay in an abusive situation. That's
Not
the
at
bottom
all.
line.
Not at
No,
all.
even if you wanted to hoping that it'll somehow
Yeah.
get better.
Yeah. And I've seen so many young women like that. As I talk to them on Instagram, and I'm gonna speak on something real quick
Mhm.
that bothers me. I need church people to stop telling other church people to stay in these type of relationships when you know that's not what God wants. God does not want his sons nor his daughters injured in that way. Stop pushing these people to stay in these marriages that God doesn't want them in anymore. Stop telling them to stay and suffer pain when they don't have to and they're not supposed to. They were never meant to. That has to stop being the narrative in the church. It has to.
I agree.
You have to be supportive of the one who wants to leave that abusive relationship and be there for them. Open your doors to them. I see so many women on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and they're saying how they're praying God changes this person. And I always say, what if God is changing you, not them?
Mm.
What if you're supposed to walk away, but you're ignoring the voice of God when He's saying walk away because you're not supposed to stay in it? God
Hmm.
sees what we can't sometimes.
Yes.
And He
Yes.
sends people to give you warning. Run, leave. And if your church is encouraging you to stay in it, leave because your well being is not in their minds at all. They
Hmm.
don't care about your well being. A true church, a true pastor will care about your well being. And he will want you to be in the safest situation possible, you and your children. And
Hmm.
again, that's for a man or a woman.
Yes.
It has to stop. It does. We cannot keep bringing up. Paul said against the. Paul also lists, and the Bible even lists the things that are the standard to get a divorce:
Hmm.
infidelity, abuse, and abandonment. If any one of those three are happening, you're free to walk away. You're
Hmm.
free to leave, and you're free and stop beating people over the head for wanting to get remarried or for getting remarried. You do not get to speak to the purpose that God has for them for being with that person.
Hmm.
You don't get to do that. Stop judging these people unto condemnation. Yes, we're supposed to judge each other, but not unto condemnation, unto admonishment and correction. And
Totally
we're
agree.
taking that and we're abusing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, and I know where that narrative comes from a lot of times, and but like you said, sometimes the breakup, might need to take place because of something that occurred with the marriage, and then there's other instances, quite often, where the marriage wasn't supposed to even be a thing
Yeah.
to start with because some of those same issues were present prior to the I do. And
Hmm.
so it just didn't, wasn't accepted or
Yeah.
acknowledged or came to light until after the ceremony and everything takes place. So, we know in a perfect scenario that God wants marriages to stay together even if they go through
Hmm.
challenges and all of that. But as you stated, he also loves us and wants us to not be in it, not be in a dangerous situation
Hmm.
where you're actually subjecting yourself intentionally to abuse.
To injure.
I
Yes.
don't believe we serve a God that wants that.
Hmm.
For us. Again, reconciliation, even in the most extreme circumstances, is always possible because God is able to
Hmm.
overcome any and everything. And I've seen examples of some extreme, crazy stuff going on in marriage, and the marriage gets restored and they live happily ever after.
Hmm.
It can happen,
Yes.
but again, we always want to, again, the safety piece that kind of started this conversation is if that's present, then let's
Hmm.
separate first,
Yeah.
physically separate first for the
Yeah.
safety, and then
Hmm.
from there let's see
Figure it out.
what
Yeah.
if there's a pathway for us to figure it out. And if it
Yeah.
is, great, we give God the glory, we testify
Yeah.
that how we overcame it. If you've exhausted all the efforts and
And
it just ain't
yeah.
there,
Yeah.
then we
My second
tried.
ex did that when I was ready to go and I wanted him to leave. And he was just like, I want us to go to therapy. I want us to go to counseling. I've asked you to do that for the past 13 years and you didn't want to. So why when I make the decision that I'm finally tired and I'm done, now you want to.
Hmm.
If there's an issue that pops up in that marriage, seek counsel. Seek godly counsel.
Godly
Don't
counsel,
seek just
yes.
any counsel.
No.
Seek godly counsel because some of this counsel will have you breaking up with that person so they can come get the person that you broke up with.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I
You
think
know,
you
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 have to
hit
be
it.
careful who you let in to your marriage because or your relationships because sometimes that third party has their own issues. They
Hmm.
have their own plot that they're planning for. And you have to be careful. You have to watch them.
So true. Because if God is supposed to be the head of a marriage and you now need counseling, then you need somebody that's of a godly
Mhm.
mindset to help you with that counseling because they're going to approach it in the way that the marriage itself is supposed to carry
Mhm.
itself out. You know, it's what's one thing for me to be book smart and know all the technical terms and all of that, but that doesn't make me
Mhm.
godly just because I know
Yeah.
know the
Yeah.
right verbiage and the
That's why
terms
you're
to
supposed to
speak.
study because it brings the book. And that's why I pick psychology also because it allows me to learn the book things.
Hmm.
But I'm also able to bring godly things into it because I
Yes.
study the word also.
Hmm.
So I know what marriage should look like. I know what it should sound like. I know what it should be. I know what me as a wife should be.
Hmm.
I know what a husband should be. Now it's getting together with a husband and wife and saying, hey, you all have these issues. Now, how do we solve them? How do we learn to communicate? Because one of the number one killers of marriage is communication,
Yeah.
not talking. If he is not communicating with you before you say I do, he's not going to communicate more because you married him. It's not going to happen. Most people
Hmm.
show you who they are before they even marry you. And I speak from experience. Some of us ignore it greatly. And then when we get knocked upside the head with what we ignored,
Hmm. Yeah.
and God is like, you didn't even have to do that. My dad and I were talking about that the other day. God took me to obedience is better than sacrifice. And as I was sitting there talking to God, he was like, what does that mean to you? And I was like, Just that. Obedience is better than, having to give up a sacrifice in the temple. He was like, no. He was like, it's better to obey me the first time than have to come back and repent because you messed it up.
Mm. Wow.
It's better for us to do things the way God told us to do the first time
Mhm.
than having to come back and repent because we messed it up. We try to fix it ourselves, mess it up, and now we got to ask God to fix it or say,
Yeah.
God, why me?
Why me?
God is like, why
Why
me?
not
Why
you?
you? Why would you touch it? Why would That's like you tell your child, hey, um, go clean up your room, and they only clean up half the room. You come and you fuss at them because they only cleaned up half the room. Well, why are you fussing at me? I cleaned the room, but you didn't do it the way I said to do it. You didn't 100%
Yeah.
clean up the room. You weren't obedient the first time through. Now you're mad at me because I'm fussing, but I wouldn't have had to fuss if you'd have did it right the first time.
Right. That part.
God gives us the opportunity to do things right the first time. He doesn't like having to chastise us. He doesn't like having to punish us at all. It hurts his heart to have to do that to his children. Just like it hurts my heart. Thank God I don't have to do that too often anymore. But when my boys were younger, I hated putting them on punishment.
Hmm.
It hurt having to because in my mind, you just should have did it right the first time.
Right.
God feels the same way. You should have just did it right the first time.
Just do what I tell you to do.
But correction, when a shepherd has a staff, it guides the sheep where they're supposed to go. But sheep who are obedient the first time, the shepherd doesn't have to use the staff on them. He just might have to nudge them a little bit to keep them on the path.
Hmm.
It's the hard-headed ones that he's got to lead the 99 to go get that one.
Hmm.
Are we going to be the 99 or are we going to keep being that one? When are we going to get to the point of we're just like, you know what, God? Again, not my will, but your will be done.
Yes.
I'm gonna get this right the first time. I'm there in life right now. I just turned 40 earlier this year, and I told God, I said, from now on, I'm gonna get it right the first time. I don't want to. I don't want to keep doing repeats. I'm tired of failing. I'm tired of every time I turn around, I gotta do it all over again. I'm not making good decisions. No more. No more. Give me the wisdom when I hear you to obey the first time.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Well, Candy, this has been an awesome conversation.
Yes.
So much has been captured here, and I know that those who are tuning in are going to be blessed by what you shared. Such a powerful testimony, such transparency, and I certainly do appreciate that because this is what it's all about. But before I let you go, we here's customary at the Blessings and Streets podcast. We want to take the time to celebrate you, to love on you, to acknowledge you. So if you got anything exciting that's going on right now or coming up down the way that we need to know about, that need to get connected with, please share that with us. We want to celebrate you and know what's happening with Candy that we need to be in touch with and link up with.
Like I mentioned earlier, I'm in grad school. Just started last month on the 25th. So I'm still in my first semester. This is week 5. So I'm halfway through my first semester.
All right.
Trucking through that. At the same time, I am writing a thriller mystery suspense series called Locked and Loaded Ladies and Faded Men. And it's dealing with this cult that wants to do bioengineering to create the perfect humans.
Mm,
So, they have people with different eye colors, and it's a lot of identical twins and a lot of, you know, parts and pieces that go on. Um, and you never know who the villain is in the story. And I'm not giving the villain till the last book. It's 7 books. Um, the one that's out right now is Locked and Loaded Ladies Daily Journey. Locked and Loaded Ladies, Janice and Michelle will be out on the 31st. Faded Men Chasing and Mason will be out March the 30th. Faded Men Marcus will be out June 30th. Locked and Loaded Ladies and Faded Men present Secret that will be out October 3rd. Um, Locked and Loaded Ladies Faded Men presents Secret 2 will be out December 31st. And then Locked and Loaded Ladies and Faded Men present Checkmate. And that will be out the 30th of March, 2026.
Wow. Okay, okay. So if somebody wants to get connected with any of your products or services or anything like that, what's the best way for them to do that?
I have my website, www.misscandygirl, my name, Miss, my name, girl.com. Um, I just opened up my business earlier this year, Miss Candy Girl LLC. So I'm an official business now. Um, I have a TikTok shop. I'm on Amazon. All you have to do is type in my name, Google my name, and I pop up
All right.
on many platforms. And my books are in different languages in different countries also. So
Oh, awesome, awesome. Well, we definitely celebrate not only the works that you have out and that are coming out. Celebrate your educational pursuits. Is always good whenever you're trying to expand your wisdom horizons and showing your credibility and when what knowing what you're talking about. And of course, having those personal stories to combine with that. So that is awesome. I'm excited for you and I would encourage all of our listeners to check you out, go to your site and support you in whatever way they see fit, whether it's something that'll benefit them personally or if they know of someone
somebody, yes.
that they can bless with sharing some of your information with,
And when
please
life
do
is
that.
lifing is very popular right now. I just had another order for it that I have to take and drop off to the post office today. It is an extremely popular book. And like I said, I told y'all a little bit of my story, but it goes much, much deeper. And it tells a lot more of my choices, my decisions, and a lot of the outcomes. Some favorable, some not so favorable. But
Mm,
when life is lifing is extremely, extremely popular right now.
awesome, awesome. Well, I am happy for you, excited for you.
Thank you. And I'm happy about you getting
Yes.
ready to publish yours. And I
Yes.
cannot wait because I am one of those people. I believe in supporting my fellow authors always. I do. I believe in that completely. I believe that we are sometimes the greatest support for each other.
I totally
And
agree.
just showing that love for each other sometimes is what opens the door for other people to show you love also.
I certainly do appreciate that, and as Candy stated, I have Blessings in the Streets special edition version. This will be my second book, but this is a more expanded version of the original Blessings in the Streets. It's scheduled to be released January 28th, 2025,
Nice.
and I'm currently in pre-sale mode for that. So if anybody is
Nice.
interested in wanting to secure a copy through pre-sale, check me out on social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Connect with me, and you can get yourself a you can do a pre-ordered copy that will be autographed for you.
Nice.
I'm excited about that, and of course, we're in Blessings in the Streets podcast. This is our third season that we're in now. So
Nice.
Candy's a part of our third season, and so we're up and rolling with that, and I'm excited about another, you know, season long adventure of having phenomenal guests like Candy coming
Yeah.
aboard and sharing their stories and things of that nature. And there's going to be a host of other activities and opportunities for you to connect with myself as well. So keep your eyes out on me. Follow me on Facebook. I also have a Blessings in the Streets Facebook page. So if you haven't followed that, feel free to connect with that as well. I would encourage you, of course, to the podcast, share, subscribe, comment, like, because here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is what it's all about. We want to
Yeah.
inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift, being transparent and vulnerable and sharing our stories with the hopes that you might get something from our experiences that you might be able to apply to your lives and be able to work through some challenging and difficult and adverse moments in life. But most importantly, our hope is that you have a relationship with Christ and understanding the importance of
Amen.
God being in your life. So if that's not a decision that you've currently made, I pray today that this will be a perfect opportunity for you to make today be that moment that you give your life to
Yes.
Christ and enter into that relationship. And I promise you, and I'm sure Candy would support this in the sense that
Yes.
it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make.
Best ever.
So,
And if
with
you had Christ and you walked away, baby, come home.
come on home, come on back.
Come home. You are always welcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, again, thank you to my listeners for tuning in today. I appreciate you so much. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you are going to be tuning in for season three, just overall in general, as we introduce more exciting guests, more exciting stories, and things of that nature. Just remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. And what is our motto here? This is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I look forward to seeing you next time. I so much thank you for being a part of this experience with me once again. Look forward to seeing you to tune in with more episodes. And until then, you take care of yourself. Have a blessed day and just take care of your families and love on them, love on yourself. And but most importantly, look to God and allow Him to guide you through every step, every process of your way in the good times and even in the moments of difficulty because He'll never let you down. His promise is rock solid. So take care of yourselves and I'll see you then. All right. All right.